Escortia, am always with you as I am always with Amy. I, Escortia, am always with you because I want to be here with you on the earth plane now. I want to see you walk hand in hand with Spirit together to create a new beginning, a new world, to have new hope, so to speak, for this world. And that is why I so support the New Hope Metaphysical Society.
I used to meet with Amy and John when Amy had the Escortia Center in Germantown. And she would do channelings and provide spiritual guidance and meditations. And I think the New Hope Metaphysical Society evolved from a group of people that came together who wanted to share a common interest, and sort of people like, I guess you could say, are on the fringe from traditional society, who wanted some kind of forum to come together and talk and share in some of these alternative kinds of practices, such as meditation, channeling.
So now draw in your breath, counting slowly to 8. And release your breath, counting slowly to 10.
It's very interesting just to see a different point of view, a different way of looking at things, just to see how different people live. It's very interesting.
When I know I'm a tree, when I understand that I'm the microbes in the soil, when I get that I'm the storm that's raging around out there, when I know that I am the ocean, then that significantly alters my actions and my choices in the world.
What we've been doing for this community's been doing, the New Age, the Metaphysical Society has been doing for the past 18, 20 years is really, I think, been very progressive. There are various different kinds of forums that take place. There's a Valley Forge Expo, spiritual expo, that takes place usually in October, and there's a cross-current of many different kinds of spiritual groups that get together that promote these ideas of something beyond the ordinary, something beyond what we see in day-to-day life in terms of our daily interactions, in terms of what we see with our 5 senses. And I think what we recognize is that there's a lot more out there than we realize, and that we can see with our eyes and hear with our ears. There are other connections that we can have with one another that are extrasensory perceptions, and as we tune into these areas and as we practice and go within our own spiritual connections with ourselves, with what we find to be guides, angelic beings, we can really open up our connections to the greater aspect of life. And I am by profession, I'm a psychologist, so I practice in a more traditional world in terms of what I do day to day, and yet this is another aspect of who I am that is a more alternative kind of aspect of my personality. And in some ways, people who are from more of the traditional mainstream world might perceive what I'm doing as a little bit woo-woo, but I find it very enriching and rewarding and fulfilling, especially when people are able to connect with the other side, people who have lost loved ones, and through mediums and through people that channel, who are psychics. We find that there are it's wonderful, amazing kinds of things that people connect on the other side, from loved ones that passed on, to their own guides, angelic beings, and we don't really understand, in terms of traditional mainstream society, all these kinds of connections, but it's uncanny to see what happens when people open up to these, to the guidance and the connections.
You, we all are experiencing the results of the game that's been played out for a millennia by humanity as well as by other beings from other levels to be separate from God. God is all it is. To be totally in the flow with the ego and with the narrowed perceptions of one who is spiritually adrift. And so we are saying now that you are no longer adrift, though you may still feel it, but you are now coming to the end of this sense of being alone, of being alienated, of being cut off, of being tied off from your spiritual source, from your spiritual family, from your spiritual guidance, from your spiritual support. And so I, Ascordia, am that spiritual support for you and for many others, and to let you know now that we are reconnecting. There is a reconnecting going on amongst all of you, with yourselves, with your aspects, with your soul, if you will, and your spiritual family. That is quite marvelous. That is quite a revelation. That is quite a miracle, if you will.
Group was introducing people's experiences, sometimes with aliens. They had different dreams. They had people who would interpret dreams, and all kinds of workshops. This was new to the area at that time, and the people appreciated the fact that they could talk to other people about what was going on with them. Sometimes quite mysterious things were happening, and they didn't understand it, and the metaphysical group helped them understand what was happening.
I've been involved with metaphysics since the 70s, I guess. I did a 40-day training in Europe. So I don't practice wizardness in my life as an apparent wizard, but I do have that quality, and out of all the things I could feel and pick and look back at my personal history, I would say there's some magical qualities. Seth talks about the magical self. And I'm in touch with that, as many of you all are. So this is what I came up with, and it feels right.
When we tune into that deeper, that level, that more expansive level, there's a sense of love, and there's a sense of joy, and there's a sense of spiritual awakening that we don't really understand, in day-to-day life, and we don't experience it in our traditional world where we're operating, within four walls, behind the desk, at a computer, with using cell phones and technology. This is beyond technology. This is beyond cell phones. This is beyond like I said, the five senses.
We weren't just talking about this or talking about that or giving information about this and being in the head, but we were doing experiences and meditations or bringing people in who would actually be able to give experiences to people and to touch their lives in real ways and display their gifts. And that was always my orientation toward people.
We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain, flowing to the ocean. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return.
I experience with the president of the organization, Amy Bortner-Gianluca. She was channeling the angel Escordia, and she does, at the end of the channeling, she does these tones. The angel makes tones come out of her mouth, and every atom in my body vibrated from the tones. And ever since then, I've been more intuitive.
Teenager, people were freaked out by it and I stopped talking about it. And I recovered it about 20 years ago when a friend who was taking psychic development classes, bless her, she's not here tonight, said she was channeling away and she picked up a quartz crystal that was sitting with us and she plopped it in my hands and she said, "It's your turn." And it was all over the screen at that point. And the next thing I knew, there were words flowing out of my mouth and this stone was talking to me. And since then, everywhere I go, stones, trees, you name it, there's just this wave of, "It's a live one, talk to her, she'll tell people what we're saying." So that's kind of my experience. And in the past year or so, I've gotten really, really loud about this because Gaia said, you need to be really loud about this.
I like that there's a variety of disciplines that are represented. I do enjoy that. I particularly like the galleries where, you know, the mediums come in and they give messages from spirit. That's very nice.
It's a little book. I don't know what this book is. It's a little red book. I look in it and I thought it said Saint Teresa on it, of Avila. Any connection to that? Interesting. It's a little prayer book, but it's not the regular Bible. And she has all these words in it. I think she's one of your guides. And I don't know anything about her, to be honest with you, but she says, let's see if I can get this, your safety or your grounding or your purpose is to find ecstasy, which is a strange message, because you would think ecstasy takes you off the ground, but actually for you, it will help you to be here stronger, because there's been difficulty being on this planet for you.
The channelings have just been very profound, and I've been to some channelings where I've, particularly Escordia, who Amy channels, is a beautiful, loving spirit, and loving presence, and I've always felt an embrace whenever Amy has channeled Escordia, and that's that really touches me. I really feel a sense of returning to something or connecting with something that feels familiar and feels very loving and welcoming. And you know, there's always something. I can't say there's one particular incident, but I can say that each time I've been to some of the different events, meetings that we have, I've been impressed with the level of information and the depth where people share in terms of their capabilities to connect with that which is beyond the ordinary. And I really feel each meeting has been very, very moving for me.
represents and what many groups like it represent are not being afraid to move into the intuitive self. That America, being a materialistic country and a very rationalistic-oriented country, is a very left-brained country. And so often there's a little war going on between the left brain and the right brain. And so artists and people who are intuitives, really, it's becoming better. It's starting to integrate. But I would just like to suggest to people that this group has kind of always been a little bit on the cutting edge, as this church has been, some other organizations I've been, and to not be afraid to open to that space inside oneself that is more intuitively oriented and has much deeper connections to all that is around us, and particularly that is unseen, and to not just trust, your belief system or your intellect or what you can see with your eyes or your senses. Bhagavad Gita talks, of course, a great deal about that. Most spiritual books talk a great deal about that. Don't rely on your senses. It's only a teeny fraction.